didn't fail, I just found 2,000 ways not to make a light bulb. If you had have asked Thomas Edison, he would have told you that there is no such thing like a bad idea. There are only ideas that are better than others. And to find those ideas that are better than others, we have to start by creating as many ideas as possible. And how do we do that? We do that by getting out of our box, getting out of our comfort zones, exploring the unknown land. Welcome and hello to the third part of our design thinking series. Welcome and hello to 101 Ideation Tools. My name is David, I'm your host, and this is the Think Club, your community of like-minded people to co-create and innovate together. If you like, by any chance, what you see or hear today, please give us a thumbs up, a subscribe and a share below. And if you have any positive or constructive or negative comments, critics, please feel free to put it in the comments down below as well. With no further ado, let's get started. When we want to come up with ideas, we first have to ask the right questions. And how do we ask the right questions? By asking open-ended questions. Questions that allow us to explore the unknown, to be open-minded, appreciative of diverse ideas, be appreciative of the ideas of other people. And a way to ask this, which is quite common used in design thinking and innovation, is the how might we question. For our example that we used in the past videos, you will find that. But when we ask those open-minded questions, we want to do it because we don't see things as they are. We only see things the way we are. So to get out of our box, we have to ask those open-ended questions. In our previous example, we were talking about the pandemic that we're going on and all the challenges that we're experiencing with that right now. So one of the problems that we want to solve is to help elderly people to stay connected with their families, with their grandchildren, for example. And the how might we question that we want to ask here is, for example, how might we help elderly people in isolation to stay connected with their loved ones? And when we formulated this question, we want to keep it in our minds, always on top of our minds. So what we do, we put this question on each and every document, whiteboard, sheet of paper that we use for our ideation process. We write it on top of the whiteboard, and or the paper, and whenever we get distracted and whenever we lose traction with on our journey, we just have to look a little bit up, and it comes and it reminds of us of what we want to resolve. Always keep your question on top of your mind. Ideation tools, there are plenty of ideation tools out there, and we won't be able in this session to go through all of them. But in the description of this video, you will find a link to the most comprehensive collection of ideation tools that I was able to find on the internet. So feel free to click later, find a link, and have a search yourself to dive deeper into the rabbit hole of ideation. What we're going to do today is I will show you some of the ideation tools that I normally use in workshops or in other group settings, plus a little bit of adjustment to how you can use it in the current situation where you are all in social isolation. So I added a little bit of additional information to it, how you can probably use the same tools that are working properly for group settings in an isolated setting as well. Awesome. But before we get started with the tools, some rules how we ideate. First, there is no wrong answer. There is no wrong idea. All ideas are equally welcome, and we do not judge at the beginning. It's about quantity, as I said, or Thomas Edison better said. He failed 2,000 times before he came up with the solution how to design a light bulb. So it's about quantity. Find 2,000 ways, 2,000 ideas, and there is by guarantee a good one within that. Crazy ideas are welcome. Anything that is normal does have a very little chance of being innovative. So don't hold back with crazy ideas. Let them out. Worst thing that can happen, you inspire someone else to come up with even more crazy idea. When we ideate, it's about ideation. It's not about judging those ideas. We want to withhold criticism, and words like no and but are forbidden when you do ideation. What is most welcome are words like yes and. Think about it like that. Whenever you say to someone who just forwarded an idea, no but, you're basically smashing a door in front of them. When you say, yes, that's a fantastic idea, and let's see what else we can do with it, you opening those doors. You're basically going through that door. Open doors, don't smash them, walk through them together. Mentioned it already, build on other people's ideas. We are all living in our own boxes. The more diverse the people around us are to help us ideate, the more likely we come up with new ideas that are bigger than what we can find ourselves. So appreciate other people's ideas and take them as a base to build on top of them. And all the ideas are just a try out. We do not judge, we just give it a go and we see whatever happens. We appreciate all craziness that can come out of it. And last but not least, set yourself a time limit. We're talking purely about ideation at the moment. No judging about the ideas, just collecting as many ideas as possible. Set yourself a time limit. And I'm not talking about 1 or 2 weeks, I'm talking about 1 or 2 hours. You defined your problem up front, you created your how might we question, and then you focus 1 to 2 hours on coming up with ideas. And that's it. Don't give yourself more time. Force yourself to come up with ideas within a given period of time. Awesome. Hope that does make sense. If you do have any questions to this or any other topic, any of the ideation tools that we're going to talk about, please feel free to post your question in the chat. After the presentation is finished, as usually, we will jump onto the chat, and I'm happy to answer any questions that are coming up during the presentation. So don't hold back, ask questions, and yeah, help each other to learn more. Let's jump into it. First ideation idea. Ideation tool. This is probably not rocket science and not very eye-opening. Brainstorming, everyone heard about it. And depending on the setting, the group setting, it can be brainstorming, brain writing, brain dumping. The difference basically is about brainstorming, we're yelling ideas out, and one person or two people are writing it onto whiteboards or flip charts. Does have the deficit that some people that are a little bit more shy and and not as confident, they might hold back a little bit and might not get hurt. So I normally in a group setting prefer brain writing, where people are writing their ideas down in silence. I give them 2 to 3 minutes to come up with their basic ideas, and then we collect those ideas and put them up onto the boards. Brain dumping, the same concept, but it's you by yourself. Just write down all your ideas onto a sheet of paper and sort them later. Or better than writing it down on a sheet of paper, write it down on Post-it notes. Post-it notes are awesome because you can move them around. And in a later stage, you will see that when you combine ideas and you will find similar ideas, and you will find ideas that will connect easily. So when you use Post-it notes, you can easily group those ideas and move them where you want to have them. Don't get hung up by color coding anything at this stage. I like to use different colors, but without any code behind it. I just like to use different colors because it makes the whiteboard, the ideation surface, more dynamic, more creative, and that helps to basically unleash more ideas. So different colored post-its are good. Don't try to overthink it by putting a system behind the colors you use. Just use whatever colors you want. Brain walking gets us one step further. In a group setting, let's think about a meeting room, a conference room, and you have a group together of people to ideate together. Put multiple whiteboards in there, multiple window surfaces that you can use, and get people out of their chairs and write down or put their sticky notes on different sections, on different areas of the room. And then allow people to walk from one whiteboard to the other whiteboard and explore what is on this new whiteboard and bring their own ideas onto that whiteboard. Have them moving around, have them discover new ideas on another whiteboard that they have on their own, and let them combine their own ideas from their whiteboard with the ideas from this other whiteboard. Why is it a good idea to do brain walking? Movement is good for us. Think about it, we're talking about getting out of your box. You're sitting still, just on a table. You're basically sitting in your box. As soon as you get up and you start moving around, you create more freedom for yourself, for your brain to be creative. And it goes that far. So the idea behind is that when we move, our brain or our body is producing dopamine. And dopamine helps us to be creative. Movement, sports is releasing dopamine. Listening to music is releasing dopamine. And water, the sound of water is releasing dopamine. So when I do ideation for myself, I often listen to music, dance around in front of the whiteboard, and just pop everything onto the whiteboard that comes into my mind. You can do this in a group setting as well. Everyone does have to be comfortable in a group setting that we play music, but playing music in general, uplifting music, is good to boost creativity. Moving around to music, and you will get more creative ideas out of people. Sometimes we just hit a roadblock when we want to be creative. Sometimes it happens in group settings that the whole group stops coming up with ideas. More likely, most likely it will happen when you ideate for yourself. And there are tools and tactics, strategies how to get out of those blockages. And one of those techniques is opposite thinking. By opposite thinking, we actually take our how might we question, which in our case is how might we help elderly people to stay in isolation, to stay connected with their loved ones, and we turn that around. So we ask ourselves, how might we deny elderly people in isolation any contact to the outside world? Definitely not what we want, but by asking this question and finding solutions to this question, we're actually changing how our brain is working. The same words that we are using to solve that problem that an individual is using to find answers for that problem might trigger different solutions for other people or for yourself as well. For example, if I want to deny elderly people any social contact out of their isolation, I would think about shutting down, cutting all the communication lines, shutting down mobile phone coverage for the area where they're living in, or blocking it out of their apartments, which I would have probably not thought about, that it is important to have this infrastructure going in the first place by trying to solve the original problem. So now I have more solutions and more ideas that I can bring in, like guaranteeing that there is sufficient communication infrastructure installed to solve the problem of keeping those elderly people in touch. So opposite thinking helps us to take a different point of view onto the problem, and it introduces new words that are triggering new solutions for the original problem that we want to find solutions for. And another way to get out of blockages are creative breaks. I hope that we soon, all of us, will be able to go out again and enjoy sunshine and a walk outside and some picnics, stuff like that. Not just for ideation, but for our general well-being, but it's also very good for ideation, especially when you have a blockage. So normally in a group setting, when I run workshops or work with my team on ideation, I will try to schedule the ideation session around the lunch break, starting 1 hour prior to the lunch break, running into the lunch break, getting all people out of the room, doing whatever they want to do, getting them to talk with other people that are not in the ideation session, having them to talk about what they are doing and what they've learned so far and the problem they're solving, getting them into a different mindset, and then continue on after the lunch break with another 30 to 60 minutes with ideation, where those new ideas from the break can then come into it. Lunch breaks are good, half an hour, 1 hour break. You can think about scheduling it over 2 days, starting 1 hour before the session of the day ends and letting people go home, and doing it first day in the morning again after the break. There are some downsides to that. Normally the energy is getting lower towards the end of the day, so you might be a little bit more challenged to keep the levels up. And in the morning, some people, depending on what's the setting, when people are commuting or they had to drop off the kids and stuff like that, that might actually distract them from the actual ideation. But what is really good about that is that people can go home and do sports, which is good for coming up with new ideas, and people can have a shower. and sounds funny, but we talked about dopamine is important. Sports releases dopamine. The sound of water releases dopamine. You all have heard about that people are having their best ideas when they're having a shower, and this is really scientifically proven, and it goes that far that universities like the MIT in Massachusetts, they actually do have water-resistant whiteboards in the showers of their PhD students' accommodations. So having a shower is a fantastic way to unleash creativity, and if you can write down your ideas right when they pop up underneath the shower, even better. I said that, again, you have to be able to keep the energies up when you want to ideate towards the end of the day, and you have to get people into the ideation mindset early the next day as well, which might be a little bit more challenging. Scamper. It's a widely known strategy that you use in a further evolved stage of your ideation session. So you did all the brainstorming, brain writing, brain dumping, brain walking, brain dancing. And let's say after the lunch break, people came back with some more ideas. Then I would introduce Scamper, which you basically look at the ideas that are already there, which you might have already combined and built onto each other's ideas. And then you ask yourself or the team questions. What can you take this idea? What can you substitute? Which component of the design or which step of the process you can substitute with something else? What things can you combine? Two complete different ideas or pieces from different ideas that you can combine to actually create another solution. Adapt. Can you use your idea or one of the ideas to resolve any other problem as well? Modify. Obviously, we are looking at what can we change in an idea. Put to another use. Similar to adapt. Eliminate steps or pieces of the solution without compromising the functionality, or rearrange those steps and pieces. What you might think right now is a lot of that stuff, adapt, put another use, modify, rearrange, eliminate, sounds all similar. Yes, and don't get hung up if different people or yourself are coming up with the same solutions but classified differently. So let's say you think about one change that you make as being elimination of a step, while another person would classify it as a modification or rearrangement and modification. That is totally fine. The words, the Scamper, the trigger words substitute, combine, adapt, modify, and so on, they are here to trigger your thinking of what you can change. And we have those different words not because they all mean something different by definition by the language, but they might mean something different for each and every one of us, because we did grow up as in different environments, and we might be used to use different words for the same things. So the same solutions under different of the Scamper processes, strategies are completely fine. Don't get hung up with getting it right. Just get ideas out there, and as many ideas as possible. And then there is the Crazy 8. The Crazy 8 is normally used in group settings, where you have a team, let's say with 4 people ideating together. You would start with each and every person creating their own sheet with 8 boxes on it, like you can see on this picture, and then each person would start to draw or write or stick a post-it note with their first idea into the first box. There's a time limit. You give them 60 seconds, 90 seconds to sketch it or write it down, and then you move it on to the next person and to your left, and you take the sheet from the person at your right. And then you look at their solution, their first idea, and you build onto that idea. Again, time limit 60 to 90 seconds. Build on the idea of your predecessor, and then you move it over to your left again. And so you combine ideas and you build on top of each other. It's basically a facilitated way to build onto each other's ideas. If you were attentive, then you figured out that something is missing in this example. Obviously, we did not put our how might we statement on top of it. You should definitely do that to basically whenever you get a sheet of paper, you refocus on what's the problem that you're going to solve, and get you refocused again. You move that around. If you're 4 people, you probably move it around 2 times, so you have all 8 boxes filled in. If you're by yourself, it's a little bit more tricky because you know all your ideas already. You came up with them yourself. But I will tell you in a bit how you can actually do a crazy 8 by yourself as well. With anything we do in the ideation space, I mentioned it several times already, don't jump to conclusion too early. It is not about identifying the best ideas or sorting bad ideas out. It is all about collecting as many ideas as possible. Don't think about how to implement it at this stage. It's all just about creating as many ideas as possible. Because when we jump to conclusions, we basically our conclusions are based on our past experiences, and our past experiences will not create any more innovation. We will just repeat what we've done before. And if you do what you've always done, you will get what you've always gotten. That's not innovation, that's just repetition of old stuff. Don't jump to conclusions too early. Be creative, open-minded, come up with as many ideas as possible, and when you're done with ideation, the next step is to actually identify which one of the ideas you want to follow up with and which ones you park at this stage. Awesome. As every week with every video, this is supposed to be an interactive adventure for all of us. We have a new challenge for this week. I want you to create your own how might we question for the challenge that you are working on right now, or that you are facing, probably due to the COVID situation. And then I want you to ideate using brainstorming, brainwriting, Scamper, Crazy Eights. If you have a whiteboard, do it on whiteboard, dance, walk around. If you do not have a whiteboard, take large sheets of paper and just get started. And don't overthink, don't judge yourself. All ideas are equal in this stage of the innovation process. If you do have any questions, pop it in the chat. And as always, there will be a Zoom team session on Thursday, same time, which you will find the invite in our Facebook group, which I will post in the chat later on as well. So if you have more questions or you want to have some hands-on help with your ideation process, you're more than happy to jump onto the Zoom with me on Thursday, same time, 5:30 Melbourne, 2:30 Jakarta and Vietnam, and 7:30 Auckland. If you're in isolation right now, you're working with distributed teams and stuff like that. That's what happens for us here at the Think Club and at Think Innovation as well. So we are, my team is scattered all over Melbourne at the moment. But we figured out that the Google suite, the Google tools are quite good for interacting and collaborating in remote situations. I'm not getting paid by Google by any means. It just seems to be the best tools that we found so far to do a crazy 8 together, or to just post notes onto a Google document, into a Google document. Instead of post-its, we can download pictures from the internet for our ideas, for example, or we can just type directly in it. But the more colorful, the more crazy it is, the more it supports your creativity. So that's what we are using here, and it works quite well for us. Minimal delay. Okay, we're all in Melbourne. There's probably there's probably less than a second latency in between one person typing and the other seeing it at their screens. Get unstuck with random words. I mentioned it earlier, and we talked already about some strategies how to get yourself out of a block. Opposite thinking, for example, having a creative break. But you also can help yourself with a random word generator, which is especially helpful when you do ideation by yourself. Obviously, it's harder to get other people's opinion and inspiration by other people's ideas when you're by yourself. So I reckon you have a look into random word generators. For example, for the Crazy 8, you start with your first idea to solve the problem, and then you use a word generator. You pick the first random word and you implement that word into the solution in your second box and build onto your first one, integrating this random word. Next random word, you go to box 3. Fourth random word, go to box 4. Your ideas do not have to be realistic. They can be very crazy, right? So I reckon just go with the words that are there, even if you do not necessarily know how to get started. Only jump words when you really can't come up with anything that you're happy to write down. In general, be crazy, come up. If the next word is giraffe, then find a way how a giraffe can help those elderly people in isolation to stay in touch with their kids by having a giraffe standing in front of the window, communicating, taking the messages from the grandparents and walking over to the children and telling them. Something like that. Don't judge, just come up with crazy ideas and incorporate those words into your Crazy 8. Or even when you get stuck with brainstorming, brain dumping, use the random words and integrate them in the next solution, the next idea that you can think of. There are some links. The same links are also in the description of this video below. Some random word generators that are working quite well. And Ideation Tools, I've mentioned it earlier, a fantastic website with the best collection of ideation tools and a rating, actually, which tools are working best in groups and which tools are working best when you ideate by yourself. Fantastic website. I reckon to check it out if you want to dive deeper into the rabbit hole. But since there are so many ideation tools, we are also thinking of following up in 1 or 2 months with another session, 1 or 2 ideation tools probably, to introduce you some more of them hands-on via one of our videos. Don't forget, innovation is the implementation of an idea that is creating perceived value. There is no innovation if no one implements it. Last video, KYC with empathy, we learned about how we understand what is perceived value. This video, we were talking about how to come up with as many ideas as possible. Next video, part 4, rapid prototyping. We will talk about how you get MVPs, early prototypes of your idea ready to be tested as soon as possible, as quickly as possible, so you can make quick decisions if it is a good idea or bad idea, or what you have to change to make it a better idea. The next meetup, the next video is already scheduled, so you can sign up for it straight away. And looking forward to see you all again there. And I think that concludes our presentation for today.